Hey guys, today we're going to go through the insurance in Michigan. I'm going to go over the coverages you have to carry, the coverages you should carry, and then give you some pointers at the end because there's a couple changes coming out, actually a lot of changes coming across in the next few months with Michigan. If you're new to this channel, my name is Mark Flockhart. I'm licensed or have been licensed in over 40 states. Currently, I've been doing insurance for close to a decade, so I've got a lot of experience in different areas. I'm really specializes in finding the best discounts. I work really well, really close with certain companies, and have found that a lot of the prices that people overpay for have to do with one, not knowing the coverages they need or should get, and two, the agent doesn't really know what they're doing as far as giving every discount that the person deserves. If that's interesting to you, definitely subscribe. Otherwise, let's jump right into Michigan. What you have to carry. There's 4 parts to the insurance in Michigan. There's the bodily injury, the property damage, you've got PIP or personal injury protection, and then you also have the limited property damage. Let's start with the easy part. Limited property damage, required, can't remove it, it's $1 million. Get over it, it's there. It's cheap, by the way, so that part I don't care about. You've got the bodily injury, so if you injured somebody in an accident, its minimum is $20,000 per person, so if there's one person hurt, $40,000 per accident. So if there's multiple people hurt in the car accident, it's your fault, it'll cover $20,000 per person, up to $40,000 per accident. Property damage is the third piece. Now that's covering the other person's car. It's going to cover a minimum of $10,000. Typically, you're going to carry more than that, but that's just what the state requires. The last piece is personal injury protection, and that part is what makes insurance in Michigan so unique from the rest of them. If you look at other states, you've got like Florida and Pennsylvania and Washington and all these, Texas even, those states offer PIP or personal injury protection, but it's nothing like what Michigan does. However, that is changing, so going in the future, they're actually going to lower some of those coverages, allow you to select different limits. If you guys want to learn more about that, I actually did a full video on the changes that Michigan is actually proposing and has been lawed to change as of July 1st. Feel free to watch that video when you're done with this one. The average right now across the US, Florida, Michigan, all these states, right? The average is about $1,200 to $1,700 per year for one auto, full coverage, one driver. That's the common. In Michigan, it's actually $2,700 per year. Pretty crazy. It's $1,000 more. If you get closer to Detroit, Michigan, then you're going to be as high as $5,500 to $5,800 per year for the insurance. It's ridiculously high. And that's one of the reasons that they're changing some of the laws. They're making it so that the state or the area that you live in isn't going to be rated the same. It's going to be grouped up into different spots. They're changing the way that they rate. They're even going to give you a freedom or kind of a break where if you haven't had insurance, they're going to give you kind of a leeway on that. But if you want to learn more about that, like I said, I'll put that in the description here. So the medical portion, although will change in July, is currently unlimited. If you get injured, doesn't matter if you lose your whole arm and it's $3 million to get repaired, put back on, functional, right? If it's a $3.5 million job, completely covered on the policy. It's required. Now, what that does for you is it helps a lot in those major scenarios, but the average medical claim is not that high. So that's one of the reasons they're changing that law as far as the limits that you have to carry. Will the price go down? Probably. There's some give and take. It should be interesting to see how that plays out. But that's the PIP. That's what makes it different than everybody else. Where in like Texas, you can opt out of it and you can pick medical payments instead. In Michigan, it doesn't matter. You've got unlimited no matter what you do. The only way to lower your premiums on that is if you have your own medical. Now, if you have your own medical, there's a piece to it you have to ask. Does it coordinate? And what that means is, does it connect with your current insurance? Right now, where if you get injured, your car insurance pays the bill. If your medical doesn't pay the bill, they have exclusions in Michigan where they say if you get injured in a car accident, it's not covered. So you still have to do primary PIP or primary medical. If you want to coordinate it and they say, no, if you get hurt in a car accident, we'll pick up the bill. So now you're switching those. Now your medical's the primary, and that's called coordinated medical benefits. And that just simply means your medical's first, your car insurance is second. So if you only have $1 million worth of that medical, then Michigan's going to pick up the difference. Should you coordinate? That's the important question. Most everybody, if they have it, they're like, coordinate, coordinate, coordinate. Something to think about before you do that. Yes, it'll save you $100, $200 even on your policy, but what is the deductible that you carry on your medical? Because if you have an accident and your deductible, like mine has been in the past, which is like $7,000, crap, man. I have to pay the first $7,000 of that medical. It doesn't make sense for me to coordinate that with my auto, because my auto, I don't pay the deductible. I pay my car deductible if I crash my car, but I don't pay that medical deductible. So in most cases, it makes more sense to have that in your auto. Now, if you're always maxing out your deductible and your car insurance doesn't matter, absolutely. Or if you have a low deductible, you have $1,000. In that situation, what you're going to do is you're going to coordinate that, because you're going to save as much as you can on that auto policy. There are other parts to the insurance, which I haven't covered, is comprehensive and collision. Those are also different. It's the only state that does this. Comprehensive is the same. If you hit a deer, glass damage, theft, vandalism, all that stuff, hail damage, if you hit an animal, that's all comprehensive, right? Whatever deductible you chose, most people do anywhere from $100 to $500 deductible, and it's not expensive to have. The collision is very, very different. You have limited collision, you have standard collision, and then you have broad form collision. So the three different pieces of those you have to pick. And then a lot of times you have to sign off on which one you chose, because they do offer those. They want to make sure the agents are offering those options. Limited, almost nobody does. I have one person I insure out of my entire book that actually does limited collision. Sorry, it's my family member. It fit well. It just works, right? So for this person, if they get in an accident, if it's their fault, nothing's covered. It's gone. If it's not their fault, they pay the deductible, and then the car is covered up to the value of the car. It's kind of a bad coverage just because of that, but sometimes when the cost has to make it work, then yes. The most common one that I get, and the most common that we do, is standard collision. And what that is it doesn't matter whose fault it is, it's covered minus your deductible. So you always pay the deductible. And the reason most people do that one is because there's something called a mini tort. And what that does is that can let you go after the insured that hit you for up to $1,000. So you can go after their insurance and they'll pay up to $1,000 of that deductible back. So it's $500 deductible. You tell them it wasn't my fault. You had that coverage on your policy, which is super cheap, like $2. They come back and say, okay, we'll give you your $500 back. The negative to it versus the last coverage is the fact that you have to pay the deductible up front. It might take a month, it might take a couple weeks, depending on how quickly they pay you, but you'll eventually get that funds back. The only risk that you're taking by doing the standard coverage is if there is nobody to go after. So let's say a hit and run, they hit your car, took off, and you're trying to claim that and it's a collision. You won't get that deductible back because there's no one to go after to get that mini tort taken care of. That's kind of the only risk that I see in that situation. The last piece is going to be something called broad form collision, and this is what I personally carry. Honestly, there's not any specific reason I carry this. I would be just as happy with the standard collision. I think it's kind of one of those things, I've always had it and I just don't feel like changing it. But what that does is if you're at fault, you pay your deductible. If you're not at fault, you don't pay anything. It's waived. So your insurance pays that portion of it or waives that portion of it. It's kind of nice to have that, just because if you do get in an accident and it's not your fault, you kind of feel like you're getting penalized when you're paying deductible. Yes, will you get it back later? Most likely. But it's like those questions like, am I going to get it back? Am I not going to get it back? Almost every single time I've seen everybody get their deductible back. If they deny it, then you just submit it again, and they usually approve it. What coverages should you carry? Well, Michigan, the typical policy, and this is actually the coverages that I personally carry. Bodily injury, $250,000 per person. That's if you hurt one person. $500,000 per accident. So if there's multiple people in the car. Property damage, $100,000. Some people do a little bit higher than that and do $250,000 for property damage. So if you damage someone else's car, the reason they do that is it's only a couple dollars. So it's like maybe $5 a year more to increase that. So why not, right? You could hit a Ferrari, I guess, and total it. So that's a possibility. They do the uninsured motorist. That's if someone hits you that has no insurance. That's $250 per person, $500 per accident. And then underinsured motorist, which is $250, $500. The benefit to that is the same situation. If you get in a car accident and the medical needs to kick in and your medical is coordinated, you can always claim the uninsured motorist or underinsured motorist. And then if you're doing full coverage on a vehicle, usually $500 deductibles. Some people do $100 on comprehensive. The only thing I would say be mindful is Michigan is a no-fault state. And so by default, they don't typically always rate the not at fault stuff against you. But because it's claimed against your insurance, once you usually have 2 or more claims, they'll start hitting you with penalties or fees. You'll start losing discounts because of that. So just be mindful of that. If you're going to pick a low deductible, don't be heavy on filing those claims because they'll find a way to get the money back. And then if they don't, the next guy's going to charge you just as much. It's kind of a lost cycle, and it's one of the reasons they're trying to fix a lot of this stuff. They're trying to make the rates a little bit cheaper, mainly for Detroit, but for us, it's going to do that as well. Anyways, guys, I hope this was helpful. If you got good advice or if you know someone in Michigan that needs to get this advice, definitely share it with them. I am going to put a link in the description below. If you do want to get a quote from me or one of my associates, we work with 17 different companies. One of the reasons that I have been able to build close to $1 million book of business within a 2 to 2.5 year time frame is because we work with not only 17 companies, is also you got to know what you're doing. So when you work with all these companies, sure, when we plug you into the system, it's probably only going to quote 5 or 6 of them that are competitive for you. But sometimes you got to remember the husband and wife that owns a house versus the husband and wife that owns a house and has a kid is completely different. This company wants them, this company doesn't. You got to know which place to put them. And sometimes you got to have that mind shift where you've been doing this long enough and you know enough of these companies where you know, oh, wait a minute, these guys have this type of credit, these guys have this type of situation. They're a perfect fit for this company as well that doesn't go into the standard program. So I'm going to spend the extra 15, 20 minutes to retype it into a different one that I'm going to get you that best rate. If you do fill that out, just know that it's not going to go to some random website and send you some fake quotes and things. It's going to go directly to me. I will either disperse it to a coworker or I will try to quote it myself, and we'll go through those companies to find out which is the best fit for you. I think on average we're saving about $600 and some odd dollars, like $670 or $680 per year. That's our average for people that switch to us. So no pressure, whichever way you go is fine. I hope you got really good advice out of this. If you did, definitely give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.